On Mondays, I show like your little short video that gets them kind of pumped up. And I always have everything, like I have the questions ready, their team questions in Google, and I have Flipgrid open and everything. So I show the short video, and then I usually talk about what we're going to do. We go over like we look at that worksheet, the student handout. I don't require that my eighth graders do that. Like I don't require that they hand it in. I use that more as a guide. So I do give them that, I give them that in on a paper copy, and we kind of talk about it. Then Tuesday, I have the kits, like all the resources, and they do them individually. The projects like the rover and the robotic hand, everybody, I don't have them do that as a team. They do that individually. So Tuesday, I give out the kit, and if we couldn't squeeze in the long detailed video on Monday, we watch that first thing Tuesday. And then honestly, the rest of the week, they work on their project. We talk about, the engineering design process. They get their Goose Chase questions in. Hopefully they have their career question done. And then the Google Doc, they have to turn into me as a team. And I grade that as a team. And then I also grade Flipgrid as an individual assignment. So they get 2 grades a week from me.
How we're running it is, so ours is basically a club. And so we meet on Mondays for like 40 minutes. So basically like our meeting each Monday is basically like, here's your new challenge. Here it is on Flipgrid. We'll do the very short, like 1-2 minute video together to get an idea of what the theme is. And then it's basically like, you guys are on your own. And if you have questions, you can come back to us. But they were able to basically do all this stuff just by following along with the videos and having those instructions. And then like the rest of our meeting is like, here are your Goose Chase questions. We put them into Google Slides, decide who's going to answer each one. We'll give you time to work as a team in a breakout room. And then they need to be in by Friday. So the videos I think are really helpful.
So all of my stuff was in the afternoon. So I have a Google Classroom just called Space Club, and they all have their own file folder that had the requirements, all of the your print out the student packet. And so each week we'd get together and do like a 20-minute check-in, and I would tell them, this is what we're working on this week, your materials. They have their own bags with their ID on them. So each week I'd have their bags, and then we talk about what's in the bags, and then they would go off into their things when they went home, and then I would talk to them if they had questions. But once that Monday meeting was done, that was their go for it. And I was there to help out, just like I'm in the classroom, just like you do your thing, but I will help you work through it.
So I always start off with your mission intro first. And then I definitely use a few of those videos that you guys have in the teacher lesson plan to kind of dig a little bit deeper. So I love those. And so I use as much as I can. And the students, will take notes, and we'll do brainstorming sessions just based off of kind of learning and education from that. And then I do kind of like a little teamwork time. So they'll do the space fun, the science connection, and our team, if they have that. And so I'll give them time to kind of get those done. But sometimes I do say you just need to get those done before Friday. Like if I want to give them extra time to build and work on materials. And they are doing the packet engineering process along with it. So after we watch the mission intro, they kind of do the research with videos, or sometimes they can do their own research. And then they kind of get this divide and conquer time where they're finishing those challenges, but also working together to create sketches and ideas of what they want to make. Yeah, so depending on the week, if it's twice a week, I spend that first class doing all the kind of the Goose Chase stuff. So that way they can have one class just to build. So they do all the prep, the sketching, everything within that first session. And then when they come in that second class, I'm like, all right, you just grab your materials and go. And they spend that whole class. When we have 3 days a week, it's still kind of similar. Like but I usually tell them you can spread out some of the little things if you want for Wednesday. It's usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday for us, but I usually try to get them building by the end of class on Wednesday, and then Friday they can use the whole class period. Because if they can get more building time in more than one class period, they're super excited.
So they, we meet Mondays and Fridays. So on Monday, we introduce the topic and then, you know, go over all the awesome stuff that you guys provide, which is so great for me because then I don't really have to think much about it. I'm just like, oh, it's all right there for me. It's great. And then they do their projects over the week. And then Fridays we come back together and the kids, I sit and I listen, but I don't really participate in that because that's when they decide what they're going to put in on Goose Chase. So they look at each other's projects and talk about which one is their favorite and that kind of stuff. So it's been working out really well. They've loved it. So on Mondays, we look at all of the missions and then they kind of break up. Okay, I'm going to do this one. You're going to do this one. And then they'll talk about their answers. But there's like one kid will post the answer to each challenge. So they kind of all have a responsibility. Yeah. Yeah, they post their videos on Flipgrid and then they can see each other's work. And that's kind of how they decide whose project they're going to submit to Goose Chase. We watched the videos together and then talked about it. And then I would split them up and they would go into their breakout rooms into their groups. And then they would build on their own throughout the week.
Oh, cool.
And then we would come back on Friday to see what we've done.
So they would pull up the Goose Chase questions. I post them I have a Google Classroom for Space Club. And so I would post the questions on there each week. And then when I put them into groups, the students without a phone could pull up the document and the other students could get on the app. So they were all able to look at the questions at the same time. Yeah, so ahead of time, I would post, like I said, the Goose Chase questions, the link to Flipgrid, although I think they can see all that once they're in Flipgrid. At the beginning, I had some students are like, I can't see the new mission. And I think it was user error, but so I would post a link to that week's Flipgrid. And then, so when we start the meeting on Monday, I would check in. We have our last meeting is today. I think we may have one next week since you guys extended the deadline, but I have a meeting today after this meeting. So we check in and see who has something to share, like the project they're working on, if anyone has any questions. And then I shoot them into groups after we kind of share out. Was it last week? The week before, I think it was, we did the Kahoot game.
Oh, nice.
So that was one of the things we did at the beginning. And then I send them into their groups, and then in their groups, they start reading through the questions, the Goose Chase questions, and answering them. And so I have some teams that work really well together. And like when I pop into their group, they're all sharing and kind of working together. And then I have other groups that, don't work so well they're fine together, but they tend to like each do their own thing. So what's happening in this group? Well, he's working on something and I'm working on something. We're just kind of sitting here working, but they would just divide everything up. And then I would just let them work. We meet for an hour and then I would let them work until the end. And then we also are meeting on Thursdays and doing basically the same thing, just kind of checking in. Does anyone have anything to share? And put them into their groups. And normally they don't stay a whole hour on Thursday. Some of the groups, I think it's more like a social activity too. They like to get in there and just hang out and like have someone to talk to and, but that basically it starts whole group and then ends in small group. I don't know, for us, I think that we needed the 2 sessions because the students without the app or they can't, it's because we're all distance learning. They can't talk to each other. So being a team activity, they didn't have time necessarily to finish everything on Monday. And then if they finish it later in the week, they don't really have always a way to communicate with each other. And some of them are friends that were in the same group and some of them didn't know each other, from different classes. So they didn't necessarily talk to each other outside of class. So Thursday, which is just like our short, it could be as short as long as the students need up to an hour. But I think if you're all distance, I think that second meeting, is necessary for the teams to be able to wrap things up for the week.